Hi, folks. Steve Urban here, founder and CEO at recruiting firm Riderflex. If you enjoyed today's guest interview, please give it a like and be sure to subscribe to the Riderflex podcast. And now, a quick word from our sponsor.
Try the #1 marketing platform for small business. Everything you need from design to marketing to CRM. Learn more at marketing360.com. Marketing 360. Fuel your brand.
Kate Westad on the Riderflex podcast. Hi, Kate. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Good. Are you in Minnesota today?
I am, and I'm giggling a little bit because it's fall here for sure.
What's your temperature
Beautiful.
right now? What are you about around 70?
Gosh. I want to say like maybe even 65, but it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. The leaves are turning, so it's beautiful here.
Now I guess you're from there. I mean, I don't know. I know you went to college there. Did you grow up there too, as a high school, as a kid? Give me the family story.
Yeah, I mean, I currently live maybe 15 miles from where I grew up. So I've made it really far in life. Yeah. So I've lived here my whole life. Which really, when you start out as a kid and you're thinking about your life picture, I certainly didn't think I'd still be living very close to where I grew up. And it's beautiful here, though. I have 4 kids, and so my kids love it here, and it's amazing. So like I said, I grew up here. I went to college here. I went to law school here, and now I've launched a startup here.
How about that? Now, your folks, so your parents, are they still around? Are they close to you? And did you have any siblings?
So I have siblings, and my sister, who I'm very close with, she lives in Minnesota still. And so it's like, I think it's kind of that Minnesota energy. Like, a lot of people grow up here. Even if they leave, they come back. I think there's just something in the air, the water, but it's mostly about the people.
Okay. And your parents are still alive and close?
They are still alive. And my sister is, like I said, here in Minnesota. And
Cool.
so.
Okay. Very good. And you said siblings. How many kids were in the family?
So I grew up in a family of 4, and now I have 4 kids. So
where were you? Where were you in the mix?
I was second oldest, middle.
All right. And was what kind of talk to us about your family there a little bit, just so we can get to know you. Was it what'd your dad do? What'd your mom do? Was it super strict, or was it a little casual? What kind of atmosphere did you grow up in?
Well, I think like a lot of kids who grew up in the 80s and the 90s, I mean, I don't even know that we came home for lunch, at times. I mean, we'd leave in the morning, come back at sunset. I mean, it certainly was a different time. It's differently than how I raised my kids. I'm in my mid-40s now, and I think back to those times of growing up. But I think it was also a really amazing time to grow up like that, because it was really, I was really independent. We grew up in sort of the suburbs of the Twin Cities, but at that time it was really undeveloped, really small town environment, very rural almost. Like I grew up on a dirt road, and I remember there was this huge snowstorm, back, I want to say the late 80s in Minnesota, and we were snowed in, like we couldn't go to school. And I remember being really disappointed because I was like, I want to go to school. What is this? Yeah. So, I was like a really adventurous kid. I loved to learn how things work, which now I look back as an inventor, and I think, well, that's interesting. Maybe most kids don't want to change the oil in the lawnmower, or, in like a motorbike, and take things apart. You learn how to change oil in a car. I think, looking back now, I think maybe that's not the most normal thought as a kid. I love taking things apart and putting things back together. So that's what I spent a lot of my childhood doing.
I see. Okay. And was your mom or dad a lawyer? Where'd the law degree come from?
So, I think I'm just a little bit of a different, kind of person, in that I just wanted to try everything. I wanted to know how things work. I was really musical as a kid. I was the drum major in band. I was really into art and design. I really was interested in lots of different things. And so I was actually the first person in my family to go to college, let alone go on to graduate school. So I just had this, I think it all boils down to just being a really curious person and like wanting to
Oh,
know how things work. And that included, our legal system. And that's what, led me to law school.
your brothers and sisters are like, oh, Kate's always the overachiever. Damn it.
I don't know about that, but I think it just is like, I was very curious and I really wanted, there really was no question in my mind that I wanted to go on to college and law school and see the world.
Wow. Wow. Interesting. Okay. Very good. And so you were a good kid. I mean, for the most part, good grades. No, you didn't get any no rebel, no major trouble there in high school. Nothing like
I mean,
that. No.
I had a little fun that I got in trouble with, but never, never, outside the family, never got in trouble with school, never got in trouble with the law,
Okay.
was very like
Okay.
mind your P's and Q's. Like you say, I really, tried to do my best in whatever I, sought to do. And
Okay.
I think when you talk about nature over nurture, it's definitely nature, in my opinion. Like you're just
Okay.
born a certain way.
Okay. And when you were getting your undergrad, you knew you were going to law school because you majored in political science. You were like, I'm going to law school.
I mean, that was the idea. And then there was a part where I was like, I want to really think about this. And I took a year off. I graduated early. I graduated
Okay.
like 3.5 years from college. And
Ooh.
so then I took some time off before law school to like, I worked at a broker dealer. I waitressed at night, to see like what, and take some breathing room and see what I really
Yeah.
wanted to do. And in the end, I was like, I really do want to go on to law school. And so I did.
Interesting. Okay. Very good. All right. And are you now, were you going to law school? When did you get married? When did you have kids? What's the timeline there? Because I've noticed that you're very free with, your information. You basically say on your website, I'm I'm the only parent of 4 kids, which I love when people get personal and make it real and keep it authentic. So talk to me about the timeline. Did you get out of law school first and then you met somebody? How does it, give me the timeline there?
Yeah, so sometimes I don't always share like the most personal things to me, but I do try to be really candid about my situation and about what I've gone through as much as I can
Mhm.
emotionally tolerate, in the
Okay.
situation, because I think
Okay.
it's so important for people to know that they're not
Yes.
alone and
Yes.
that,
Yes.
other people go through this and they triumph. But
Absolutely.
I was dating my college sweetheart, and then he went to law school also.
Okay.
I ended up getting pregnant in my last year of law school, and we had our first child, and then got married after that. Like in the first year, I think that I started practicing law, and then went
Okay.
on to have 3 more children. And then he passed away in 2014.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Oh man. What suddenly you got or
Yes.
was it?
And that's the
Mm,
part where I can't, I'm not there yet. Maybe, maybe in another 8
yeah.
or 10 years. It was just
Yeah.
such a traumatic time for my
When the kids
family. And then
when
suddenly
the
being in,
kids were little.
oh
The kids
yeah,
were
like
small.
12 down to 4. And then suddenly, you have this a really tragic, traumatic event happen in your life. And
Oh
that's
my
the
gosh.
part that I just can't really talk about yet.
Okay.
Maybe, like I
Okay.
said, someday I can. But what I do like to share is that I am an only parent. I have gone through this, so people know they're not alone and know it's possible to like turn the page and
Mm,
really still open that box of dreams that you've had your whole life, and know that
mm.
life is short, and go after, those dreams that you've probably put aside.
How old are your kids now?
So my oldest is 20 and my youngest is 12, and he's in 6th grade. So he's pretty funny.
The
He's at a
20-year-old
funny age.
is the 20-year-old still at home or off to school or out of school?
She is at school. So she's
Okay. So
at
you got
school.
3. You got 3 at home.
So right now I only have 1 at home because my son, who is 16, is going to a junior prep school out east
Oh,
and playing
oh,
football.
oh,
He's
cool.
just like a super achiever and just like super independent, which I can relate to.
Yeah.
Um, so, I think it's hard sometimes to let your kids fly, especially
Mm,
when they're younger, but I'm so glad I have. He's a tremendous kid. All my kids
uh,
are tremendous kids, and they all have wonderful strengths, and they've been through a lot. Like they've been through a lot at their young age.
no doubt. You and them both, right? I mean, yeah, everything that happened, with their dad. And then, okay. So, wow, some major hurdles and events there for everybody. You were practicing law at the time. I guess walk me through. Are you still practicing? Did you stop practicing to start the company? Walk me through that timeline.
I mean, that's like a whole podcast in itself,
Yeah,
Steve.
yeah,
That's a
I
whole
know.
story all by
I
itself.
know.
We could spend hours talking about that. So I had launched just a few months before COVID with Palette. I was still practicing. I was a 17-year veteran litigation attorney. I had cases all over the United States. I handled dozens and dozens and dozens of, cases to positive resolutions, handled 7 and 8 figure case resolutions, managed teams, so I had a really significant, passionate first career as a litigation attorney. And then, we have this tragic event in my family. I have this whole box of dreams that I haven't opened yet, this box of dreams that I had been thinking about and cultivating and thinking, maybe not in this lifetime, but I was, tracking them and thinking about them constantly. And so, it just didn't stop, thinking about these other things that I was so excited about. And I became just quite frankly obsessed, so that was sort of the timeline where, I started, thinking about, the Palette by Pack project more significantly in the last few years before I stopped practicing, which I have stopped practicing primarily, although, I still have my hands in a few things. But mostly I'm now focused on Palette by Pack. And, certainly that started immediately before COVID hit.
Interesting. So, man, I'm trying to visualize. So you got 4 kids. You're a single parent. You're a litigation attorney, which is a super stressful job. You're traveling, and somehow in your spare time, you're developing Palette and the branding and the design and everything that's involved with launching a brand. How did you find the time for that?
I hear one side of the coin where people say moms have so much on their plate. How can you possibly ask them to do something more? How could you possibly say, and I'm not saying it's fair that moms, and dads also, and especially only parents like myself, but I am saying that if you want to open that box of dreams and do something, like you got to find the time. And for me, it was not watching TV. It was not kind of watching other people's lives or other people's stories as much and focusing more on my own. So, to me, just stop watching TV and you can probably carve, I don't know, 20 to 30 hours out of your month.
Right. Isn't it so true?
Yes. I mean, that's for me, it was a big one. Like, stop watching TV, like stop watching mindless. And not that I don't enjoy TV. I think TV and movies are wonderful. And I still, love watching movies with my kids, but that sort of that mindless, numbing 1 to 2 hours of TV every night, like to me, that had to go.
Isn't it interesting? You're so right. The amount of minutes burned on TV, or let's include mindless videos on your phone or your tablet or whatever. Let's add that all together to where you're not really learning anything. It's just BS, funny videos, mindless stuff, right? Mind numbing stuff. The amount of minutes people waste on that is really unbelievable. And if you're right, and if you just carve that out just a little bit, you could probably do all kinds of things. Couldn't agree more. I love what you said too. Watching other people's lives. Isn't it interesting? And let's tie that into sports. People they spend so much time watching other people's lives and careers and worshiping that. Really, I don't know if worshiping is the right term, but they spend a lot of time doing that instead of focused on their own life. So I love that. I love the fact that you carved it out that way. And
for me, like, that's how I viewed it. And not to say that, like sports doesn't create this amazing atmosphere with good vibes and, that people, and I'm not judging anyone, but for me, that's what I'm going to say to someone. If you want to carve out time, if you're trying to find time, focusing on yourself is always a good thing.
Totally. Okay. So you're practicing law. By the way, what are you litigating? What kind of cases?
Oh, so I again, being the curious person that I was like, I want to try everything. And so I landed
Okay.
up working at this general practice firm where they had tons of different kinds of, law practices combined under one roof, known as a general practice firm. And so I did anything from family law in the early days to, a bit of defense work, some workers' comp. I did some securities law. I mean, and then it ran the gamut. Some transactional, but mostly, litigation based. And then I really found my passion by helping injured people. And so, then because to me, it would combine the best of both worlds where I got to, get to know and tell the stories of these beautiful people who were my clients and then help them and then also use, my highly developing, lawyer skills. So to me, it was like this perfect like combination of who I was, litigation and like helping people who had themselves faced tragedy in their lives. That was where I really felt home in the practice of law as the years went on. And then I later started practicing in the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, which is a national program in DC. That means that people, there are known adverse reactions to vaccinations, and there's actually a national vaccine program that handles those types of claims. So it's not a very well-known program. But it is a national program, and there's surcharge on vaccinations that fund this $1 billion vaccine program, and it's a governmental program.
Jury litigation or in front of a judge or both?
So mostly, I mean, that's a great question. Most people don't know that you're not always in front of a jury, that you are a lot of the time especially in motion practice and in, different stages of litigation, whether it's in federal or state court, you're in front of a judge. I would do both. But obviously the highlight, I would say, of my career was doing jury trials. I really loved doing it. I didn't like preparing for them because it's very intense, but I loved talking to jurors and presenting my client's story.
Do you have a Super Bowl moment? You probably have a few, but is there like a Super Bowl moment like this one? You don't have to give any specific names or anything, but is there a Super Bowl moment where you saved somebody that was about to go to prison, or you got somebody?
I never did criminal law. That is one thing I never did try. And
okay.
It takes a very special person. I would say
somebody,
go ahead.
No, yeah, go ahead.
Because I'm just seeing it in my mind so clearly when you said that. It just like I can still see it to this day. It's probably the reason that I went into litigation is that actually my last year of law school, I did a law school clinic, and it was to help people in housing court, which if anyone's ever been to housing court over their lease or to take their landlord to task, it's not great fun. A lot of the people leasing the property, they don't have attorneys, they don't know, a lot of them are single moms, elderly, disabled. And so in the clinic, we would take on clients who, had no resources. And I happened to at this time I have no children, but I represented a woman who had, 3 or 4 children. She was a single mom, and we went into housing court. And like, this never happened again in my career, right? I mean, this is not typical, but I get done, I'm a law student, I'm with a supervising attorney, and I give my, spiel to the judge, and then she rules in our favor. And the entire courtroom stands up, screaming, yelling, applauding, going crazy. And,
wow.
Obviously that's not normal, but it was just one of these things where just the vibe in the room and that kind of reaction, especially as like a student attorney, you're like, I was born to do this.
How about that? Okay, very good. I bet it's been handy being a lawyer, getting your own company set up. I know you got some patents, you got trademark stuff. Like, did you do all that yourself, or did you ask for help?
Well, the smart attorney knows to hire their own attorney. Those are very highly specialized areas. A patent lawyer, you have to take a separate patent bar. You have to have a STEM degree in order to qualify. There's a reason why they're patent lawyers. So I would never suggest, there's ways you can, do things pro bono. There's lots of, there's grants, there's ways to get help. if you can't afford, which I know it's very expensive. So there are ways, and I actually contributed to an article for Martha Stewart, which gives people some of these tips. And so that might be something
Okay.
great to link to the podcast, because I know not everyone can afford, and not everyone has friends who are patent lawyers to help them get started. And so I think that's a very important article. But no, I hired my own lawyers, and it's a tremendous amount of work and money. But I think it's actually one of the most important things you can do if you're inventing something that's novel and that the world has never seen before.
Talk to me about the beginnings here. So give me the story, and I've heard some of it, but you're traveling, you got your cosmetics, your makeups, you're looking for containers. Walk us through the beginnings of like, okay, there's got to be something better. I'm going to create something better. Give me the story.
Well, it was for my 40th birthday, and I was on my way to a solo trip. Or I wasn't going intentionally on a solo trip at first. I mean, I was going with one of my law school BFFs, and she actually canceled on me a few weeks before. And I was like, oh, hell no, I'm still going. And then it turned into this solo trip, and so I'm exhausted. I've been working all day, taking care of the kids. And so I'm not even packed. And so I'm in my room late at night packing, and I'm looking at all my goops, glops, and glam, like all my stuff, that I want, all my beauty stuff that I want to bring on vacation. And I'm like, there just has to be a better way to do this. And literally in that moment, I could see the high fiver. I could literally see the high fiber like above my head, like like a little thought bubble. Could see it. I could see the colors, and I could see the shapes and the size, and I could see the name palette. And I was like, oh, I must have seen this somewhere, so I kind of go on this like journey of searching, on my trip, incidentally, in France. I'm thinking about it, and I'm searching, and I'm like, I must have seen this somewhere, because I really needed this for this trip, and then I'm realizing I think I just invented this, I think I invented this. And I'm like, and I just became like, this is the part you can't explain to people. I just became obsessed with the idea, because people are like, how do you, like, even, like what you said earlier, like how you have all this on your plate, and then all of a sudden you're doing a startup and you're inventing something. But that's the part I can't describe about the obsession. I mean, I knew that
you're drawing, you're making drawings, you're sketching it out, you're doing all kinds of stuff. All right.
Yes. And, and also I'm on this like eat, pray, love-esque trip to France. I mean, no doubt. I mean, that is happening. That's part of the equation. But and then I was boiling it down. Like, do I do something like this product idea, or do I do a book? Do I do an app? Because I mean, I have a lot of ideas about a lot of different things that I want to do. And so it boiled down to, and the kind of the months and, weeks following that trip, like being like, I really need to make this. I need to make it. And that's how
this is the high fiber. This is the high fiber you're talking about.
Yeah.
Show us again. Can you tell the consumers, if they don't know what it is, can you just tell them what it does and describe it?
So this is the world's first beauty reusable. So the outdated method of packing all of your beauty, skincare, cosmetics has been that you just buy a single use. In the last, I would say 30 to 40 years, you buy single use containers of shampoo, conditioner. And this primarily was designed for skincare, beauty, cosmetics, where you just need small amounts. I'd be taking these trips to either France or, I'd be traveling for work, and I'd be gone for 1 or 2 nights, and you just need the perfect amount of your skincare routine or regimen and beauty products.
And you don't want to have to take 5 big bottles of something. So you just, what do you put? You put like a little bit in each one of those little things. Is that what it is?
Yeah. So you just decant, your full size products. So we're a sustainable startup. What I then learned during the process was that those tiny travel bottles, travel size, they don't get recycled. They're such small sizes that most, residential recycling programs can't even recycle them. It's just the machines are not capable. So then you have, sort of this coalescing moment of a small plastic that can't get recycled. They're in hotels. They're being, sold to, I don't know, millions and millions and millions of people a year, and how many do people buy a year if you're traveling, or how many are you using in a hotel? 50, 100. I mean, it starts to really add up, and then they float easily in water. That's why New York and California have now banned travel size in hotels.
Oh, really? Okay. I didn't even know that. All right. Interesting. Okay. So this is, and it's 5 little containers. Is that why it's called the high fiber?
Correct.
And is each container called the pallet? Is that what it is? Help me understand. So Pallet by Pack. Is that the name of the company? High fiber is a
The product
item.
name.
Walk me through. Yeah, I want to make
Yeah,
sure I
so
understand.
So like I said, when I was having this vision of what is now the original high fiber packing for my trip to France, I could
Okay.
see the name Palette so clearly. So Palette had to be the company name. And then my I hired this really wonderful guy to help me do branding, and we just kind of got introduced between contacts, and like we got done with our meeting, and it was such a great meeting. We gave each other a high five, so then when we were talking about naming it, that just seemed so obvious, especially because it was this 5 containers, and that was like part of the original. Like even when I met with the industrial designers and the engineers later, and they're talking about the 5 compartments, and they're like, why does it have to be 5? I'm like, because it does. Like this is the vision. This is what it is. And I'm really proud that I stuck to my guns and stuck to my vision.
Yeah, very good. Okay. And is that the one? So the company is
Palette by
Pallet
Pack.
High Five. Yeah, Pallet by Pack. And by the way, for the listeners, it's palletbypack.com, pack PAK, palletbypack.com.
Correct.
And is that the one unit you have for now? And are you planning on making other products? What's the plan from here?
So that's the part that's so exciting, is that this is just my first invention. Like we're going to blow people's minds, like with what we have in store. I have a 30 SKU roadmap worked up that most have intellectual property. Yeah.
What? 30 SKUs. Okay. You're going to be a real life product company pretty quick.
Yeah. So that's the part that's, that just makes the stars in my eyes, glitter. That's the really exciting part of this story.
Do you have another product launching soon? Do you have a timeline on your second product?
We're working on it. So right now we're scaling and trying to deal with scaling in this environment. People are like, oh, things are back to normal. COVID's over and all the supply chain issues are over. And I'm like, I don't think so. Cause like we're daily running into things that, I never thought we'd run into, especially as like a startup.
Are you selling? I know you're selling on your website. You're selling direct to the consumer on your website?
Correct. And so we've been invited to join several retailers, and right now we're deferring until we can get our scaling and supply chain in better order. But it's extremely exciting. And the fact that we've, had this amount of traction direct to consumer, and for an inventor, it's just like an inventor's dream to get direct feedback. I mean, people want to say direct to consumer is dead. We got to get into retail. Everyone's swarming even into Walmart, and I'm like, at least for these initial phases, like direct to consumer is like invaluable for a startup and a company building their brand.
I couldn't agree more. I don't know who's telling you direct to consumer is dead, but I completely disagree. Are you selling on Amazon as well?
We were, because of supply chain issues. Now we've been out of stock for a while, but we're in 2023 going to start ramping that back up, which is really exciting.
Ooh. Are you out of stock right now on the high fiber?
We are on fumes. So it's like, hopefully that'll turn around in the next few months, but we have big plans for 2023.
Okay. Where are you having them made, if you don't mind me asking?
So right now we're made in the US and actually in Minnesota, but as we scale, that's unfortunately going to have to change and is changing.
I see.
But everything from our packaging to our unit is made in the United States, which is really unheard of.
And they can't get supplies to you? I figured you were going to tell me there was China shipping issues with materials or something.
Oh, that's why I'm saying, like, these are things that I would like, dealing with paper shortages. I mean, it's beyond bananas. And we use recycled plastic, so we've had issues with that. I don't know how much you've been tracking this issue, but there's, suddenly, we use 30% recycled. There's a lot of, critique going on and, potential, legislation that's coming down on recycled plastics. I don't know if you've looked at the California Plastics Act, but, they're talking about, dictating personal care, and beauty companies for refillables, which we love to hear. I mean, this is what our game is. Palette by Pack is a sustainable beauty brand. We have 30 SKUs, a huge product roadmap about making beauty reusable. So we're all for these kinds of things and momentum that's happening, but companies aren't just going to be able to say things and put sustainable labels on things without having the meat behind it. And that's where being a lawyer and having the integrity that I have as an attorney, you not to do those things. And we've always taken it, very seriously about what type of products we're making. And that's why, especially in the initial phases, make it in the US was really important to us. So we could trace our supply chain and materials.
Sounds like you need a backup supplier. I mean, I'm not trying to tell you how to run your business.
No,
but
I mean, and we're definitely working on that. I just can't, I'm not at liberty to say what's going on, but yeah, we're definitely working on it. And, it's just a matter of fact that as you scale, like you're not going to stay with your first manufacturer.
Yeah. It's, I'm an old CPG guy, so I kind of know how it works. And I just know having some backup inventory in a warehouse, having a backup supplier. I mean, these are all things I'm sure you'll work through.
It's super important talking about manufacturing diversification. And, I've learned that the hard way. And I wish I would have had a friend like you when I first started.
Did the manufacturer, were they also a design company, or did you work with a separate designer to get it all, to get the prototype made? How did you do that?
That's a great question, because I think a lot of people go the path where they're going to have their manufacturer, do the industrial design portion. The person who I am, of course, I didn't do it that way. And I hired my own team and had my own engineers. And, and as the designer and the inventor, I would say if you're not the designer inventor, maybe you just have an idea and you're not sure how it's going to come together, that process probably works for you. But for me as a designer and inventor, like I will always hire my own industrial designer first. Always. Not even a question.
Okay. So you had a designer, then you partnered with the manufacturer, plus you had a marketing person that helped you do the branding. And are you still using that same marketing agency and or person? Is that still a partnership?
Absolutely. He's more on like the branding side, versus marketing, but definitely more on the, design branding side. He's amazing. I can't give him enough props. And plus, just when you vibe with people, like especially creatively, that's so important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah. No doubt about it. Do you have any other employees, any other partners? Who else is helping you?
So vendors. So we have a lot of vendors, which I'm very particular about. I think sometimes people assume I'm just this first time and entrepreneur, and they don't realize like, okay, I'm a veteran litigation attorney with 17 years of experience. I've ran teams. Can't bullshit me. And they're a little surprised, when you take them to task if they're not doing what they're supposed to do. So lots of vendor teams. We have some groups who, are going to be able to grow with us, some who kind of went out in the wash, but, we're kind of on our way. And I think that's another part that people don't talk about enough is sort of, how you round out your team. Like they'll talk about employees, but when you're small, you're usually not having, 300 employees out of the gate, and that you're using a lot of vendor teams to round out your workforce. And people don't talk about that enough. And don't talk about enough how it's like you're basically managing sometimes 12 teams at a time, as a solo entrepreneur.
Yeah, right. I mean, and not just, all kinds of vendor / services, whether it's your tax accountant, your other attorneys, your manufacturing partner, your marketing partner, your insurance person, your label person. It goes on and on, right? You got a bunch of relationships you're managing there. Okay. Very, very good. But so are you just burning cash by still investing on this deal? Are you post revenue and actually paying yourself? Are you eating ramen noodles? Where are you at with this thing?
I had a plan, right? I knew I was going to float myself, and being a lawyer that I was still knew I was going to get some payments, on cases that were paying out later. So I had a nest egg, I had money to invest, but then I also had money to take care of myself and my family. But at the same time, I can't even say that I anticipated how long that runway would be. So no, I'm not paying myself yet. I think it's the one thing that is hard. It's hard. I think like the founder of Tatcha, I think it came out when they sold to Unilever that she didn't pay herself for like 8 to 9 to 10 years, something along those lines. That maybe it was like 7 or 8.
Yeah.
You know, so I knew I wasn't going to pay myself for the first few years, right? And had COVID not happened, I'm not sure that I would have, you know, just transitioned off of my law practice. You know, I was,
Okay.
you know, working on that, but I wasn't escalated that timeline for me, you know, which was a crazy time.
Gotcha.
You know, anyone who
Gotcha.
had kids and suddenly had, like, I had 4 kids suddenly at home with me. And I was in the
Yeah.
middle of like training someone and transitioning my law practice at that moment. And I mean, it just became crazy town. Back to like paying yourself. I mean, I just don't think I really underestimated probably the time frame.
Yes.
So,
Are you supplement? Are you
you know,
supplementing? Are you supplementing your personal income right now with doing some lawyer stuff on the side again, or no?
I mean, there's always been that piece of it, but you do have to, you know, there's the make it or break it moment where you're like, I have to take an investor, or I have to, you know, I mean, you have to start thinking strategic unless you have a plan to, you know, float yourself for 5+ years.
Yes. Yeah. And so that's hard.
You are doing very well, but it's like paying yourself, you know, that's the part that I probably focusing on.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you for answering that, Kate, and sharing it. Can you still hear me? Our internet's choppy. There's just a little bit, but I think it's on my end, not yours. But I think we're okay. We'll keep going for now. Yeah, it's super hard. It always takes longer. It always takes longer than anticipated. For the listener, I would just encourage you. Yeah, if you think you need $50,000 worth of nest egg over to the side to last until you can start paying yourself, just go ahead and double it.
I would say, to be honest, you should plan on it being probably 10 times what you initially think, between 5 and 10 times
It's so
of
true.
what times that baby, you know, then maybe you'll hit that actual mark.
No, it's so true. It just always takes a little bit longer. Have you taken on any cash at this point, or do you plan on taking on any investors?
I'm very particular, you know, which you know, to me, like this, I have a vision. I have an extremely strong vision, you know, and when I talk to people and they're yawning in the Zoom or, you know, seem disengaged, you know, that's just, you know, or make a misogynistic comment, you know, it's probably not going to fly with me. But I've met some really wonderful, really encouraging people who have been so generous with their time and mentoring me and giving me advice. And for where Palette is right now, you know, it's just a matter of scaling and getting to a certain point to work with those people. So
Right.
really, you know, where we are right now is like figuring out a bridge to that path. And so I'm open to talking to the right person, but I'm definitely not into like deals that
Yeah.
don't feel right. And people who take those conversations, I would just tell you to stop it. Stop it.
Yeah, yeah. And you're already up and running, so to speak. In fact, revenue could be probably a lot more if you actually had the inventory.
Yes,
So, you know,
exactly. That's where it's like we're on a beautiful path,
mhm.
you know, and I'm
Okay.
really excited
Okay.
about it.
Sounds to me like you're not on a roadshow to raise cash, but hey, if you met the right person and you had a few conversations and it really felt good, hey, you might think about it. Sounds like that's where you're at.
I think you always have to be open to those conversations. I think it would be silly not to, because this person who's done what you've done before, I mean, in this game, it's all about going as fast as you can, right? With
Mhm.
the right people. And so always be open to those conversations, because, you know, I can't even tell you how maybe you can't work with this person now, but damn, they had great advice and you have such amazing synergy with them. Like, you know, this is how you make friends and this is how you build your network. And who's to say you won't work with them in the next 2 to 5 years? So I would say always talk to everyone. I mean, I've heard a couple people, and one is a dear friend of mine, and I think very highly of her, but she told me that she actually told someone, you know, that they told her to follow up when they got bigger. And she said, well, if you're not going to help me now, I'm never going to talk to you. You know, something along
Yeah.
those lines. And I would just say, never burn a bridge. You know, obviously, if someone's a jerk, they're a jerk. But
Yeah,
if
yeah,
someone's just
right.
saying, hey, you're just not in the right spot for us right now,
Mhm,
I mean, man, stay in touch with those people. You never know who they're going to introduce you to or what advice they're going to give you down the road.
mhm, mhm.
So that's my big
Okay.
piece of advice.
Okay, very good. Now, these brands, even though you're trying to protect them with patents or trademarks or whatever, I mean, people are going to copy some stuff. They're always going to copy you a little bit, right? There's always competitors. What's the what is the mission of the brand you're trying to build? Because it sounds to me like you're trying to build a consumer product brand. You're not just, hey, this is not just, oh, I created the high fiber and I'm going to sell that, and then I'm going to sell the high fiber to Procter and Gamble or whatever.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like you have 30 more SKUs and you want to build a brand. What is the mission of the brand that's going to be attractive for my wife? Like, why will she want to buy from Palette?
So we're on a huge mission to make beauty reusable. So, kind of stemming off with the high fiber as our leading SKU to show what we're capable of. Everything that we're doing is going to talk about reducing waste, having refillables, like 95% of that shampoo, conditioner, and we're talking full size now. You use face
Mhm.
wash, moisturizer, even as a guy, shave cream, shave balm, whatever you're using. Those are not getting recycled 95% of the time. I mean, we're in a huge plastics crisis. And between innovators like myself, sustainability gurus, we're on a mission to change these things. And, just inventing the high fiber is just one example of how we can take something that's so outdated, the concept of using single-use plastic and then tossing
Mhm.
it. They're not even getting recycled. They're going in the landfill, just by replacing it with a beauty reusable. Just an individual person can replace, what did we talk about? If you're an avid traveler, maybe 50 to 100 travel size a year, if not more. I mean, that's a huge
Mhm.
impact just with one, sustainable beauty swap. And we plan to do that with every category in personal care and beauty.
Okay. And are you thinking this is a lifestyle business for me and my kids and some family, or are you thinking I'm going to grow up a product brand and flip it and sell it, or have you even thought through that far? Or right now you're just having fun?
Well, yeah, first I'm having the time of my life. Honestly, it's like I'm having a great time doing this. I feel like, how I felt about being a lawyer. I feel like I was born to do this and that
Okay.
these things just come super naturally to me. And so how I envision Palette is like that we, people see us as their friend and as this close, amazing, kind of advisor on a sustainable journey. And frankly, people say, who cares about sustainability? I think a lot of people care about
Oh,
sustainability.
sure.
I think
I
more
agree.
than everyone wants to do the right thing. Everyone wants to do better, right? I mean, I think that's just human nature, but we're also solving problems. Like people look at the high fiber and they're like, this is what I've been searching for my whole life. Like, why didn't I think of this? This is
Right.
solving like a problem because you have your curated, beauty and skincare systems at home. And I just gave you something to put it in and leave the house in 5 seconds, like saving time, saving money, saving space, saving the world from
Mhm.
single-use plastics. I mean, that's what Palette is about. And so we're problem solvers, but also sustainable. I love the word lifestyle, but how I would describe it is just like the better, more happy choice. We have a
Okay.
tagline, it's like a beautiful thing. And I think that's exactly what the high fiber and Palette is.
How's your social media following? Do you have a bunch of people talking about it? And are you focused on that at all? Talk to
I
me
think
about your
it's
social
super
media.
important. I think it's super important as a solopreneur, having control of all of your channels and developing all of the social channels. It's such
Mhm.
an interesting world. Obviously, as we grow, we'd love to pull in more people to help us do it. We've strongly
Mm,
focused
mm, mm.
Instagram and Facebook because we feel like that's where we have a lot of synergy with audiences. We've had really amazing press. We've had anywhere, from, Real Simple, Forbes, Travel and Leisure. They named me to like the Forbes 1000 list, which I was
I
like
saw
so
that.
excited about.
Yeah, I
So we've
saw
had
that.
like this most tremendous, like organic and, amazing press just off our first invention. And like, you can't ask for anything better than that. And
Is
like
that
social
you
media,
hustling? Is that you hustling, making phone calls, or was that your branding person getting you in front of those magazines, or both?
So I think it's both. I mean, you really have to, like, we were really smart, and we hooked up with a PR team that
Okay.
helped us with a lot of that. I think that's very important,
Okay.
but it was really me behind the scenes saying, this is our story, this is our positioning, and this is how to tell it. And before COVID, we were just, kind of riding this natural high and this natural wave of travel press. But
Mhm.
then when COVID happened, everyone's like, oh, like racking their brains what to do and freaking out. We made this some like most amazing pivot during that time, because I was
Mm.
like, come on, this is my chance to tell our sustainability story. This is what I've been
Right.
wanting to tell this whole time. And so I made like such a concerted effort. And I think my PR team thought I was a little crazy, because they're like, okay, it's COVID, the world's like in this terrible, and people are going through a horrible time, and you want to tell everyone about sustainability. I'm like, yes. And I can't even tell you, by that May of 2020, like we were in 3 different print magazines. We were hitting tons of press marks, just telling our organic sustainability story. It was amazing. It was like one of our best pivots.
I love that. No, I think it's great. Yeah, I think that's fantastic. The social media piece is definitely awesome. You've worked with a lot of outside agencies to get this brand off the ground. How much money do you think you've put in it so far? What do you have? How much have you invested, you think?
A lot. I don't like to say how much is how much it is. But it's more than I ever planned on, and it's more than I ever thought. But once you get in it and you see the traction, and when we started developing, like doing our pitch deck and like unraveling the story, so that, because people were like, hey, we really want to see what you're about. We want to talk to you. And, like, okay, I guess I need a deck, right? I guess I need to put together a deck. We put together a deck to talk to some, pretty amazing potential partners, and you start to see what your story is. To me, that was like the most amazing thing, because these things had lived in my head, and lived. When you see it put all together, and you see like the enormity of what, I mean, my plan for palette is very big, and you see the enormity, and it's just really exciting.
What's been the scariest moment for you? I'm sure there's been a few nights where you're just like, what the hell am I doing? I'm pouring all this money into, I got these 4 kids dependent on me. I'm a single parent. I've burned X amount of money so far. There had to be some nights where you're having a few extra glasses of wine going, holy shit.
I mean, I think it's not just like a few nights. I mean, it's like every other day at times. I mean, there's periods where you're on top of the mountain, and then there's periods where you're, down the hill a ways. And that's what I think is the most important part about being an entrepreneur. And a lot of people don't like to talk about those moments,
Right.
because it's like,
Right.
oh, I'm not on top of the hill. I'm not on top. I'm down the hill a ways. I'm rolling down the hill a ways. And this is where the stamina comes in, and the utter sheer belief in yourself. That's where the magic is, and that you're going to keep on going even when you're rolling down the hill, and you're going to pick yourself back up, and you're going to keep believing in yourself. That's what makes an entrepreneur.
I totally agree. Who's your go-to person right now? Is it your sister? You said you're close. Do you call your sis? You're like, hey sis, I need to vent. Or is it your mom, dad? Who is it? Who are you calling right now?
I mean, I have a couple of mentors that check in on
Okay.
me.
All right. Good.
I mean, when people reach out to you to see if you're okay,
Yeah.
I mean, it's especially
Great.
mentors who are doing great, right? They're like on top of the mountain. They're not even on a hill. They're like on the top of the mountain. They reach out to you, and they're like, "How you doing, sis?" You know, that is invaluable. I have a network of really amazing girlfriends. My sister's amazing, but oftentimes, what the funniest advice is? It's my kids. They're like, "Well, are you gonna die?" No, okay, good. We're all good here. They're like, what is your problem? Like, why are you crying? Like,
Uh,
hey, pick yourself up, girl. So it's
but
just
being
kind of
strong
funny.
for them, I mean, being strong for them as a mom too. I mean, I can just see, I can almost visualize you. Okay, you got the 4 kids, they're all in there getting breakfast or whatever. They're getting ready for school. You're in your bedroom, you're having a panic attack, and you're just like, you're trying to, okay, let me just walk out here and be confident.
Well, there's that too, but there's also like when and this is a bit serious, but it's true. Like when you've gone through something really traumatic in your life, and you know how short life is. I mean, you
Yeah.
do tend to remember, and you're like, I'm doing this for a reason. And if I were to die tomorrow or in 10 years, would I regret this? No, I wouldn't. So to me, that's the ultimate litmus test of like,
Yeah.
what is my life and how much experience can I get before I die? It's like,
Yeah.
that is my basic litmus test. And I also have really realized that the journey is the reward. It's not trying to reach some endpoint. It's the experience in the journey. That's the rose in all of it. And if you can
Mhm.
remind yourself of that in those moments when you're very quickly rolling down the hill, um,
That's really great advice, Kate. I want to emphasize that. I know we're almost out of time. That's a great way to kind of summarize. Yeah, if you're thinking, oh, if I just get to this point, or if I just get to here, or if I can just buy this house, or if I can just get this car, or if I can just get this product launched, or whatever mark you've set, people get in their heads like, oh, if I can just get to that point, then everything will be fine. It's not really about that. It really, because when you get to that point, there's going to be another one, right? So it is about the journey. It's not about just getting to this certain point in life. It really isn't. It's about the experience. It's all about the experience for me.
it really is. But in those moments rolling down the hill, where you might not be as clear, just reminding yourself that the journey is the reward. And like, I like to
It
have little
is.
reminders, like my cup is like anything is possible, like have these little
Love it.
things around you just to sort of, give you that little reminder,
Love
give
it.
you that little
Love it.
kick in the ass.
Okay. So just wrapping up here for the listeners, palettebypack.com. So what do they do right now? They can go there, they can follow your brand. If they put something in the cart, does it go on a back order, or what are you telling them right now?
No, right. We have inventory right now. So
Oh,
we're
okay.
burning through it, but we have inventory now.
Okay. All right. So very good. So they can place their orders right now, not on Amazon, but you'll probably go back to Amazon when you get the right inventory.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you should not rule out Amazon as a channel.
Yeah. I know everybody, we could do a whole episode on that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know Amazon takes their cut and all that, but it's hard to be a product company and not be on Amazon, right? I mean, so yeah, I totally get it. All right, very good. By the way, this trademark, do you have this trademarked? This for all your goops, glops, and glam? I like that.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
it's
We
very
have
good.
we have we have quite a bit of trademarks going on. I'm a
I
big believer
saw
in
that. I saw
trademarking.
that. Yeah, I like it. No, I like it. I love hey, the website's great. Love the product. I also, just want to continue to encourage you. Your story is awesome, right? I think there's lots of container companies. I'm sure there are. You could do a million different, but people like the brand. People like the story. People want to connect to the story. And you have a really good story, especially with the stuff you've overcome and you've gone through. I think that's a very unique story. So, and you're super passionate, you're super energetic, and that's all contagious for the buyers. So keep doing it. Keep doing it.
Well, thank you. That means a lot to me. Just keeping it real over here, and we're
Keeping it
super
real.
lucky that, yeah, super lucky. We're super lucky and grateful all the support we've had, and we have really amazing customers, and we can't wait to see what happens next.